Brian Sanders is in the building. Brian,
What's up,
so
man?
glad to have you here.
Thanks, Albert.
Brian, tell me a little bit about this idea of call to do more and what you've been talking about here while at Exponential.
Well, we were, Alan and I were kind of looking at that Ephesians 4, gift mix, that kind of fivefold. And of course, Alan is saying that's like really the face of Jesus to the world and in the church. And we were trying to look at my community, the Underground Network, as a case study for how that plays itself out, which is interesting. At first, I was kind of nervous because I'm like, man, why are they asking us about A-Plus? Because we do not organize around A-Plus at all.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it was a mistake or something. They thought because I was friends with Alan, maybe surely I believe in A-Plus.
Maybe you believe in all of Alan.
Which I do, but it's not like we organize our executive function around that. Like I need to hire
like
these
Alan
5.
would want you to.
Maybe, yeah. But because we're kind of this empowering, expression of the priesthood of all believers, we want people to hear the voice of God, be called to something, and then our whole infrastructure exists to help them plant churches in those places of need.
Yeah.
And so what we discover is that those 5 giftings, those 5 emphases, every kind of person will plant. Every kind of person has an idea that they want to start, this entrepreneurial spirit which is in our time. And so if you look at it, it's almost exactly a 20% breakdown. So of the 200 ministries that we've incubated or helped start in our city or that are part of our network of churches, about 20% are kind of apostolic, about 20% are prophetic. They're trying to deal with justice. About 20% are mostly evangelistic. About 20% are kind of like about healing and brokenness, like shepherds, led by shepherds. And about 20% are about truth and teaching and whatever. So you've got, it's just interesting that instead of thinking of like APES as something you have to put in your leadership team, to actually think, can APES be something that is in the frontier of the way we engage the world, actually? And maybe even rethinking about what our leadership team is. Is our leadership team just these people that are paid? Or is actually the leadership team of your church or your community the people that are doing frontline mission? Like to us, those are the leaders.
Wow.
So
wow.
I think that was our contribution.
So as you were talking to church planners and leaders who are literally in the situation room, strategizing, discerning what God's calling them to do and who God's calling them to be as the church, from your experience, what would you speak to them in this season of the process to encourage them?
Well, I guess I would want them to feel liberated to some degree from the inherited model, that whatever it is that they've inherited, to feel the freedom to change it. I mean, you probably know this, Albert, I just feel like maybe 80%, 90% of the church that we inherit is not, it's just cultural. Nothing wrong with it. It's, in many cases, it represents a contextualized version of the church in its time, in its place.
But it's not this sacred,
but we're not bound to it. Yeah. So you go back, all of us in every generation have to look at the New Testament. We have to ask ourselves, what actually is the church?
Yeah.
Break it down to something simpler. So as you start thinking about planting or multiplying or strategizing, reaching your city, I guess I would want people to feel, liberated, to not feel like you have to plant these very expensive, very labor intensive. That's not the only way the church can be done. And
There's more than one way.
Yeah, and if it could be given, if a church could be, the idea of church could be liberated from that, could be simplified, it could be given to ordinary people. Maybe it could be more creative. Maybe it would be easier to mobilize. Maybe it would be cheaper. Maybe it would create more profound discipleship environments for people because they're doing it. Yeah. They're not just looking anymore. They're doing it. I think about there's a guy called Paul Sappho, maybe out of Berkeley, that he wants to say that the cultural economy coming out of World War II is like the producer economy. So the hero is the industrialist, the guy that builds, Then that economy gives way to the consumer economy, where we're trying to provide some great, polished, excellent service that people are going to want to buy, or the primary user of the church is a consumer. But Sappho says that he wants to mark the time. November 2008 is when the consumer economy gives way to the creator economy, what he wants to call the creator economy.
Wow.
So people don't want to consume anymore. They don't define themselves by what they consume. They want to make something with their life. They see themselves as artists. They see themselves as entrepreneurs. So I think the church has to respond to that. We have to rethink our infrastructure, and part of that is these five-fold gifts.
Yeah.
But part of it is even just the tools, the spare parts that we make church out of, to think, okay, how do we help people? They want to plant the church. They want to own what they do. And there's something in their heart that they're connected to, that they have access to, opportunity. And as long as we can take the financial model and maybe make it a little simpler, we could have churches everywhere.
Yeah.
Because people want to do it. They're ready to do it.
And we can duplicate it and we can multiply it because we can
Much
afford
easier.
it. And may end up having much more deeper impact when it comes to making disciples.
Anyway, yes,
Wow.
exactly. Yep.
Brian Sanders, ladies and gentlemen. Man, thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure.